The Village in the Mist. In a quiet village nestled at the base of a misty mountain, a young girl named Luma found an old lantern in her grandmother's attic. It didn't shine with fire or oil, it glowed gently with a silvery light, even without a flame. Inside the lantern was a folded note and a tiny pencil, no bigger than her pinky. The note read, "Draw your path, and it shall become real." That night, curious and wide-eyed, Luma stepped outside with the glowing lantern and the pencil. She had always wondered what lay beyond the deep ravine that separated her village from the distant peak of the mountain. So, right at the edge of the cliff, she knelt down and drew a bridge with the pencil, arched and wooden, with lanterns hanging on ropes. As she finished the last line, the air shimmered, and the drawing lifted off the ground and became real, plank by plank, rope by rope. The lantern in her hand brightened, as if cheering. With a deep breath, Luma stepped onto the bridge. It swayed gently, but held strong. Each step took her closer to the mountaintop, and to the adventure her grandmother once dreamed of but never dared to take. With a deep breath, Luma stepped onto the bridge. It swayed gently, but held strong. Each step took her closer to the mountaintop, and to the adventure her grandmother once dreamed of but never dared to take. The lantern pulsed softly in her hand, casting silver light onto the boards beneath her feet. Below, the ravine whispered with the sound of wind brushing stone and the distant trickle of water. Each footstep echoed, not in fear, but in growing wonder. Halfway across, the air turned cooler. Mist drifted in like curious spirits, curling around her ankles and wrapping her in the scent of pine and earth. In that quiet moment, Luma felt as though the mountain itself was watching, waiting. She paused and looked back. Her village, small and safe, glowed like a memory. But ahead, the peak shimmered in the lantern's light, cloaked in clouds and possibility. She clutched the pencil in her pocket, a reminder that her path was hers to shape. Then she smiled, took another step, and whispered to herself, "Let's finish what Grandma started." And as she reached the far side, the bridge behind her faded, plank by plank, until only mist remained. Like a dream walked into reality, Luma stepped off the fading bridge and onto the mountain path, its stones still damp with morning mist. The lantern guided her, casting long shadows on mossy rocks and twisted roots. She climbed higher, heart steady, breath tight with excitement. Birds fell silent, the wind no longer sang. As she reached the summit, a clearing opened before her, a perfect circle of stone. At its center stood a tree with leaves like glass, catching the light of the rising moon. Beneath it sat an old stone bench, and on that bench, impossibly still, was a woman. Her grandmother. Not aged, not ghostly, as young as Luma had seen her in photos, wearing a soft blue cloak and staring out over the clouds. "Grandma," Luma whispered. The woman turned. Her eyes were deep and gentle, but ancient. "You found the path," she said, her voice carrying the weight of years and sorrow. "But it was never meant for both of us." Luma's heart pounded. "I thought I was finishing your journey." "You were," her grandmother said, standing slowly. "But the mountain doesn't give without asking something back." The lantern flickered. The air thickened, cold as stone. Luma felt it then, the pull beneath her feet, the trembling in her chest. The mountain wasn't just a place, it was a gate. "You drew the bridge," her grandmother said gently. "Now it must carry someone across." Luma looked down. The lantern's light was dimming, and her hands were starting to fade, first her fingers, then her wrists. The pencil had fallen from her pocket, now nothing but dust on the wind. "But I thought I was walking toward something," she said. "You were. You walked toward the end of my story, and began your own." The tree's leaves chimed once, like bells in the fog. Luma knelt at the edge of the clearing, eyes wide with the clarity of final understanding. She wasn't being punished. She was becoming part of something older than stories, older than mountains. The bridge had been a gift, but not one without cost. And then, with the hush of a breath held too long, Luma was gone. The lantern, still warm, rested beside the stone bench. Her grandmother sat once more, tears silent on her cheeks. Luma was dead and the grandmother was alive again, full of youth and beauty.